HaShem Na'aseh Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim HaBaim. Tonight, Bezrat Hashem, we are going to start a new series. It's going to be a very, Bezrat Hashem, interesting series called the Era of Mashiach. This is based on the very holy sefer by HaRav Elchanan Wasserman, alav HaShalom, which we also have on our website for you to download for free. If you go to bezrathashem.org and you go to the ebook section, there are many books over there you could download for free. This is one of them, both in Hebrew and English. Bezrat Hashem, you could download it and follow along. Now there is a reading a book and then there's studying a book. And the point of the series is to study the book. It's a small book, but full of wisdom, as all of the Chachamim that we have of Am Yisrael, they understood that wisdom is, the ultimate wisdom is expressed in the least amount of words, but the most amount of wisdom. But as we see that the generations deteriorate, ba'avonenu harabim, in all of our grave sins, we continue deteriorating. We have to elaborate, because we do not understand what they understood from a single sentence. We need perhaps a 10 or 20 hours of explanation, but nonetheless, we still need to arrive at the same emet. So the shiur tonight and the series will be dedicated for a refuah shlema for Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Serach bat Batya, Batya bat Sarah, Simin Sarah bat Rachel, Dvorah bat Mercedes, Esther bat Tzipora, Yitro ben Avraham, and all of Am Yisrael, Bezrat Hashem, will have refuah shlema, refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, and also my dear parents, David ben Esriya and Doris bat Jora. Kadosh Baruch Hu yivarech otam bekol mikol kol, chaim arukim, shlemim, meleim Torah, mitzvot, ve'gmilut chasadim. So, the series, I can tell you now, is going to be relatively explosive as we get deeper into the series, because the words of Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman were pure fire. I've gone over brief parts of it over the last few years, but this whole series is going to be covering this entire book. It's last stage that we're in, we find ourselves in, before the Moshiach Tzidkenu will finally arrive, Bezrat Hashem. Now, the words of the Chachamim are not like the words of the politically correct. So some of the things that you see in this book by one of the Gedolei Ador, if he were to say it today in a shul, they'd probably throw him out. Not probably, they would throw him out. But the reality is that anyone that loves emet sees that this is emet la'amita. This is the ultimate emet. And as the Chachamim explain to us and teach us, when you are learning the sefer or saying the dvarim of the Chachamim, you have to imagine as if the Chacham is looking right at you, is standing right next to you. Would you speak these words if he was here? Because many times, unfortunately today, you hear people disrespect the sages, say all types of silly things. Oh yeah, I don't think the Rambam know what he was talking about, or I don't think that Rashi understood our generation. You know, there's a constant mention of our generation as if we are all deformed. You know, we're missing eyes, legs, ears, and brains. We may act like we are, but we're not, Baruch Hashem. There's a constant excuse of this generation. But the reality is, Rabotai, when we speak about the Chachamim, if you knew that the sages were standing right next to you, most likely you wouldn't be so much of a keyboard warrior like you are. You know, there are many keyboard warriors that they like to write all types of ridiculous comments on the internet, you know, making fun of rabbis, making fun of the sages, making fun of Hashem. And that's simply because they don't actually believe that anyone's watching. But as the Mishnah in Avot says, there's an ayin ro'ah ve'ozen shomat. There's an eye that's watching and an ear that hears, and a hand that's writing every single thing that you're saying, and every single thing that you're doing. And one day, it's going to be shown to you. The question is, what's going to be there? Because you may forget what you say, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't forget. So, when we speak of the Chachamim, it's very clear that we need to know who we're talking about. Because you can't just say, this sage such and such. If you're going to study his actual work, you want to know who you're talking about. Because just like if I told you, Mr. Smith said that everyone should from now on wear hats. You're going to ask, okay, you know, thank you for the fashion suggestion, but who's this Mr. Smith and why should I listen to him? Le'avdil, Rav Elchanan Wasserman doesn't need as much introduction among the frum world, but nonetheless does need a very serious introduction to the rest of the world, even some of the people in the frum world that have not actually studied his work. They may have heard his name, they may have even read parts of his bio or heard parts of his story, but we're going to try to, before we go into the sefer itself, discuss a little bit about who Rav Elchanan Wasserman was and who he is to us. You know, because all of the things that we do, whether it's helping Klal Yisrael do Teshuva for Shabbat, or it's giving out these wonderful CDs for free in different communities, with you know, to try to get them to do Teshuva for Tikkun Abrit, this fire has to come from somewhere. You know, because when you're fighting specific things that the Satan himself says, this is it. If you do this, you're going to break me, then obviously you're going to have a lot of naysayers. The Zohar Kadosh says that before the Moshiach comes, the last generation before Moshiach comes, it will have several major tikkunim. Predominantly for the men, it will be tikkun limud Torah and tikkun abrit. Meaning, men that are not studying enough Torah, and also not protecting their brit. And my Rav has taught me once years ago that when you teach different subjects, whether it be Shabbat, or Tzedakah, or Shlom Bayit, or many other things, you're going to have here and there different people that support you, and different people that go against. Oh, you're too extreme. Well, I'm just saying what the halakha says. Yeah, but maybe you should say it differently. Well, I'm speaking English. You know, but nonetheless, you're never going to make everybody happy. But there's one specific subject that gets people crazy. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, and it says, Zeh keneged zeh bara Elokim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in essence, created everything with with something that's the opposite, or an equal, if you will, but on the opposite end. And just like he created himself a kisei kavod, a throne of glory, he created the Satan, the Malach HaMavet, the Yetzer Hara, all being the same thing, the Gemara Masechet Brachot says, created him a throne of glory. Now this Satan, he has a lot of minions that do his work, because he's a king. And every time somebody, as the Mishnah in Avot says, every time somebody does a mitzvah, he creates a angel that helps him do even more mitzvot, do more good. But every time somebody makes a sin, he creates demons that are in essence weakening him and making him want to do more avirot. Now these minions that a person creates, these demons that he's creating, unfortunately are not only hurting him, but are hurting society at large. So what happens when a person starts doing tshuva? Part of doing tshuva is to stop the sins that we've made and in essence destroy all of these demons that we created, all the bad spirits that we created, all of the tum'ah that we created. In essence, you're taking away the Satan's employees. But if you, let's say for example, you didn't give tzedakah in the past, but now you're going to give tzedakah. So Baruch Hashem, every time you give tzedakah, you're destroying some. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. Unlike this disgusting human being that I had an email exchange with, that after he saw our campaign email, he told us one of these, and he called him a horrible name, one of these people, go find jobs. What, it's our fault that they decided to have 15 kids and we have to pay for it? Like, who asked you to do anything? You don't want to donate, don't donate. Why do you have to make a big deal out of it? And then he just started to become even more vulgar, and it's hard for me to believe he's really Jewish, to be honest with you. I'm kind of contemplating whether to publicize his name so people stay away from such a filthy human being. But needless to say, people sometimes are so tied to their money, it's in essence like a god to them. So sometimes their tikkun is to give tzedakah, is to give. And even the Rambam himself says that if you're very stingy, you can't give what you really have. You have thousands and thousands of dollars to give. You can't give it. You just can't handle it. Give $1 a day. $1. It's not, the dollar is not really going to help anybody other than you. But at least it's going to get you to the point where if you're giving it every day, it's going to get you to the point where you're going to start enjoying giving. You start getting your system into giving. So that's your tshuva. But even if you do that tshuva, it's good. You're destroying a certain amount of demons. For that guy, it's probably a mountain of them. But for other regular people, normal people, it's doing okay. But when it comes to the ultimate tikkun, when it comes to the tikkun abrit, see, every time a guy wastes seed or a girl walks around immodest, they're in essence creating millions and millions of these kochot atumah, millions of these demons that are in essence encompassing their life, making a shell around their neshama, making it almost impossible for them to learn or understand Torah, making it almost impossible for them to enjoy mitzvot, making it almost impossible for them to feel Hashem. They say they believe in Hashem, but they don't know Hashem. Making it impossible for them to truly get to where they're supposed to be because of this horrible sin that they're making. And unfortunately, we live in a generation that's already second or third generation of ignorance about this specific mitzvah of kedusha, of tikkun abrit. Now, the previous generation, they started teaching this stuff at 6 years old. 6 years old, they started teaching kids about this. In this generation, I've met kolel, avrechim, in their 30s and 40s. I've never heard about this once in their life. All types of people from all walks of life, never heard such a thing. Recently met a guy that's been religious from his entire life, and he got a CD, so he asked some questions. And he said, yeah, but this is really not, I don't know, should I keep the CD or give it to somebody else? I said, well, you should learn it. He said, well, it's not really relevant to me. I said, why is it not relevant to you? You protect your bleat? He goes, well, I'm married. I said, well, it doesn't mean anything if you're married. You protect your bleat. He goes, well, can't I just do whatever I want with my wife? I said, not exactly. Not according to the Torah. I mean, if you have a different Torah for your different religion. No, he goes, I'm Jewish. What are you talking about? He goes, well, what do you mean? I just, I have to I said, wait, are you telling me that when you're with your wife, it's not always, the seed doesn't go exactly where the only destination that's permissible to? He goes, no, why would it? I don't want to have so many kids. I said, okay, so you're wasting seed. The guy's face just became so confused and so horrified that he didn't know what hole to bury himself in. What hole to bury himself in. Because he realized, now he's been married, I don't know, I think 10, 15 years. He realized that the sins of his teenagehood haven't stopped. And the CD is very much for him. So we live in such a generation where if somebody starts doing tshuva for such a thing, Rabotai, that means that you are destroying millions of these demons. Now what does that mean? That means, Rabotai, as my Rav explained to me when we learned one time about some mystical teachings, he says that when somebody deals with tikkun brit, they in essence declare war on the Satan himself. They're not declaring war against sin per se. They're not just trying to do tshuva per se. No. You're declaring war against the king of all the evil that's permissible in this world. And for that, the Satan himself gets up out of the throne of glory that he has, that Hashem created for him, and fights you head on. Which means you're going to have a lot of enemies. You're going to have a lot of problems. You're going to have a lot of strange things happen to you. And strange things, Baruch Hashem, have been happening for years now, but since we did this recent publication of this CD, Baruch Hashem, the ante went up. You know, when we were giving shiurim and reaching hundreds of thousands of people over the internet about tikkun brit, there was a certain amount of war that, Baruch Hashem, was not enjoyable. But since we printed the CD, finally after 2 years of working on it, and then finally started distributing it, we distributed almost 80,000 CDs so far, in just a matter of the last 2 weeks. Well, Satan says, okay, now I'm getting up. Rabotai, I'm telling you, if I made a movie about each day, there wouldn't be enough time in a day to make it. So many wonderful things the Satan is telling us, it's working. It's working. Unusual stuff's happening. But nonetheless, it's working. So now, I spoke to my Rav today about this. I said, this is insanity. The things that are going on are much insanity. Just unusual behavior by people that usually act normal. You know, guy that's frum, a rabbi, decides that he wants to be a ganav too. He wants to be a thief also. Why? He's bored. He wants to steal from me. Nothing else to do in his life. Another one just decides, you know what? I don't know anything about you, but I'm going to tell the entire community to go against you. But you don't know anything about me. Why? I can't tell you why. Strange, unusual things. This is all good. So I asked my Rav, I'm like, he goes, listen to me. I have to tell you this. So, now you're going to tell me? Yeah, I told you this, but I'm going to tell you this a little more. It's going to get much worse. He says, I told you. You declared war against the Satan with this tikkun brit stuff. This is it. This is the yesod. This is the foundation. It's going to get much worse. So I can't tell you that you have to continue. I can't tell you have to continue. I can't tell you just make a life sacrifice here. Says, what do you want me to just leave it alone, do nothing, and just everybody goes to gain home? He goes, exactly, that's what that's the point. But I can't tell you to do it. You can do it if you want. Said, I don't know any other way. What am I just do nothing and just everybody goes to gain home? So the Satan wakes up on specific issues. This is a big thing. And when it comes to this CD, Rabotai Kareem, we need to distribute it in as many places as possible. We need to teach the real Torah to as many people as possible. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will succeed. Anyone that wants to distribute these CDs on in their community and in the United States, please go on our website. You can buy some. If you can't afford it, we will we'll help you. We'll send you some for free. Maybe if you can pay for half of it. Point is, do whatever you can, but do something. Do whatever you can and do something. Everybody can do something. If it's not money, then it's time. But it's time that people understood the magnitude of the sin. Now, one of the other things that gets the Satan really riled up is when you discuss the issues of Erev Rav. The issues of in essence, his top soldiers. The people that are the ones that are going to fight the Moshiach himself. Many of them, according to our Torah, are going to be not only Jews, but they're actually going to be rabbis. They're going to be leaders. And much of this book that Rav Elchanan Wasserman wrote almost 100 years ago discusses that. discusses that. So expect this, Bezrat Hashem, to create wars. And as a last little token, one of the little gifts that my Rav gave me today, he said, by the way, just so you know, anyone that goes after you in regards to these issues of Tikkun HaBrit, just know for sure, you don't have to ask, for sure, they're the sinner. They're sinning. Now, I've seen this with my own eyes, but to get a Torah verification for things is always nice. It says anyone that goes against this, tries to stop the distribution of the CDs, tries to go against the whole teachings of it and so on, that's the Erev Rav. He is not only a Pogem HaBrit, but that's the Erev Rav. That's the enemy. That's in essence, Satan is telling you, okay, now I'm going to show you what I got. And Baruch Hashem, he's got a lot of stuff. He's packed. But Baruch Hashem, Kadosh Baruch Hu also is. So, this is not to scare anyone, but it's just simply to give anybody a little bit of a, I guess somewhat of a notice. If some strange things happen in the coming future, now you know. So, with that being said, who was Rav Elchanan Wasserman? Rav Elchanan Wasserman was born in 1874 in Lithuania, in the Minyanam, the Minyan of the Goyim. He started his teachings under the rabbinical guidance of Rav Kook, alav HaShalom. Then he went to Telz and studied under some of the greatest sages of the time, Rav Eliezer Gordon, alav HaShalom, Rav Shimon Shkop, alav HaShalom. And from already a young age, Rav Elchanan Wasserman was known as someone that not only had a profound mind and a knack for understanding the pshat, understanding the basic meaning, and what's the bottom line of what's being said here, but he also had unusual diligence when it came to learning Torah, whether it be notes or it be under just making sure that he has a seder. And I always tell you guys, if you're going to watch a shiur or listen to a shiur, it's very different than studying a shiur. Because when you watch and listen to a shiur, you could watch it, it's in the background, you know, you hear some things once in a while that you like, some things once in a while you pretty much forget as soon as it's coming in, and that's it. When you study a shiur, if it's a high-level shiur that provides sources and something perhaps that you haven't heard before, then that shiur is going to take you a long time to study. Because if that shiur, let's say, is an hour, it'll probably take you 4 or 5 hours to study it. Because you have to stop it, write down what it says in a shorter version, you know, because you can't write every single word. It's going to take you a really long time, so you got to shorten it. And that's also going to improve your memory. When you study the shiur, you are now, in essence, treating this shiur as if it's a real sefer. Unfortunately, very, very few people take that advice that I've mentioned many times, whether it be live or online. And many times people that have been watching my shiurim for a year, 2, 3, 4 years, still ask same questions that I've already answered 50 times. Why? Because you're watching the shiur. You're not studying the shiur. Which in essence means that you're not taking your Torah seriously enough to want to remember it. And there's a few different tools that Rav Ephraim actually had a shiur today that discussed, people always ask me, well, how do you remember all this stuff? You know, how do you remember? There's different tools that were discussed by the sages. There's a book called Lev Aryeh by Rav Yehuda Aryeh, Medina, and he gave a bunch of different pointers of how you could improve your memory when it comes to learning Torah. One of them is to learn with someone that's a chacham, not to just learn by yourself, and someone that's charif, that's sharp, that's going to, what's the bottom line? Not like one of these dull people, like he can't wait to finish the hour or the 2 hours that you're together. Second thing is to make yourself books that shorten the things that you've learned. You learn something, you're reading a book, you're watching a shiur, whatever you learn, sum it up in a short version of it. Okay, so you learn, let's say right now, there's one paragraph, take that paragraph, write it in 1 sentence. 2 sentences at most. And you start filling up notebook after notebook after notebook, but more than that, you are exercising multiple senses. you're able to review a lot more material in less time, and you're going to end up being able to remember your teachings. It's chaval, it's ramash, a big waste of time to watch a shiur for 2-3 hours and not be able to remember more than 1% of it a week later, 2 weeks later. Many times I ask, people come to the shiur or they watch shiur online, and I'll ask them a question about which part they liked or what they remember, and they don't remember anything. You just simply wasted 2 hours. Simply wasted 2 hours. You didn't learn anything. No, I learned a lot. Okay, so what do you remember from what you learned? I don't remember. Oh, so you didn't learn anything. But I got a chizuk from it. Okay, for what? How are you going to use this chizuk past the 2 hours? Yeah, of course, you're watching 2 hours of Torah. Of course you're going to have chizuk. You're not going to make any sins during the 2 hours. But the 2 hours is not for the 2 hours. The 2 hours is for the rest of your life. So one of the things that a person needs to do is to make notes of the things that he learns. Also make different signs. That's why the Chachamim many times use acronyms to remember large places in the Torah. They use different acronyms to remember specific spaces or specific halachot. Point being is that there are different tools, but this is only for people that care about their Torah and want to remember it. Want to remember it not because you want to teach. Every other day I have a new kid wants to, listen, I want to be a speaker. Okay, do you know halachot yet? Do you know anything yet? No, but I want to be a speaker. Why do you want to be a speaker? Oh no, I want to help people. Well, you have to help yourself first. You have to help yourself first. You can't want to be a lifeguard if you don't know how to swim. You have to save yourself first. First, you have to learn yourself. First, you have to become diligent yourself. Then we can talk about, you'll be a speaker and helping other people. But everybody wants to, they think that there's some type of glory in speaking in front of people for some reason. No, I want to be on YouTube. Yeah, everybody can be on YouTube. There's ducks on YouTube that I promise you're going to get more views than you anyway. So you want to be a duck also? There's people making YouTube videos. One somebody showed me the other day to help me with a little bit with Yirat Shamayim. He showed me a video of how maggots eat meat. So you have a nice visual of what's going to happen to you eventually. So he showed me a video of what happens. Maggots eat a little, a piece of meat. So it helps me a little bit with Yirat Shamayim to get a nice visual of what's going to happen to me. So, Be'ezrat Hashem, hopefully it doesn't, but in reality, unless I become tzaddik, kadosh, or sort of Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation, it's going to happen to me. So, I got a little Yirat Shamayim, but the reality is, Rabotai, you know how many views this video has? Millions of views. Millions of views. So, what, you want to be a maggot now? Or you want to be the piece of meat? Which one? It's not about views, it's not about comments, it's not about likes. Save yourself. Get yourself out of the water. Stop looking for the fame and fortune. There's plenty of those already. So, if people take their Torah seriously, they'll start becoming more diligent with it. Start writing notes, start highlighting things, start having a lot of different things, which start learning seriously, but not just learning a lot of books. I have some guys that, every other day tell me, what book should I read next? They're like bookworms. They read tons and tons of books, but they read big books. They read serious books. They're not reading Mama and Papa Went to the Store. They're reading serious books, whether it's Sharet Teshuva or it's Torah Avigdor and so on and so on, all types of serious books. But still, they finish the book, they read the book, and they continue reading, but they still ask me aleph bet questions, basic questions. How do I know there's a God? What do you mean? You just read Sharet Teshuva in the first page. In the first page, if you don't know there's a God, there's something wrong with you. By the second page, you should get a heart attack. Once you get to already page 200, you probably had 5 strokes. How do you still ask the question of if there's a God? I don't understand. You're skimming through. You're not studying this book. You're just reading. Just tell people you read this book. That's a waste of time. Don't do it. It's a waste of time. Go smash your head against the wall, or maybe watch the movie with the maggots eating a piece of meat. It's going to help you a lot more. If you're not going to study, it's not going to help your life. It's not going to help your life. All it's going to do is maybe keep you away from sin for the time that you're reading, for the time that you're watching, but you're not diligent. And that was one of the special things about HaRav Elchanan Wasserman already from a very, very young age, where he took his Torah seriously as if Moshe Rabbeinu is sitting with him, chavruta, and if he squeaks the wrong way, he's going to simply burn him from the kedusha. That's how serious he took his Torah. Now, moving forward, after learning with these Gdolim for many years in Telz, Rav Elchanan Wasserman went to Volozhin and became one of the disciples of one of the Gdolei Ador, the Rav Mibrisk, Rav Sloveitchik, alav HaShalom, and became one of his disciples, also married one of the leading Gdolim's daughter, Rav Meir Atlas, who was the Rav of Salant. But then after all of this, he's still relatively young. By the time he turned a little over 30 years old, in 1906, he went to Radin. He went to Radin and started learning under the, not only Gdol Ador, but one of the Gdolei Olam, one of the Gdolim of all generations, the Chafetz Chaim, who in essence made an imprint on his neshama. From that moment on, Rav Wasserman became not only the disciple of the Chafetz Chaim, but someone that the Chafetz Chaim himself treated as a colleague, treated as like a chavuta. They were partners. Even though every time Rav Wasserman would see the Chafetz Chaim, or he would walk into the door, he would stand up because that's his Rav, the Chafetz Chaim treated him as if he was an equal. And he learned in his kollel, called Kollel Kidushim, for 2 years, from 1906 to 1908. This specific kollel was founded by the Chafetz Chaim in order to create the future leaders of Am Yisrael. In 1910, he became the Rosh Yeshiva in Brisk, but shortly after, the World War I broke out, which in essence destroyed that area. And unlike many people, when you build a business, it fails, you get into a depression, this does not happen with Bnei Torah, especially someone with the Kedusha and Yirat Shamayim of someone like Rav Elchanan Wasserman. Without pausing for a moment, he continued his Torah. He went back to Radin to learn with the Chafetz Chaim, moved to a new yeshiva in Minsk, near Minsk, in Smilovich. And then eventually, by 1921, he built his own, he became the Rosh Yeshiva of his own yeshiva in Baranovich, where he spent nearly the next 20 years creating, in Poland, creating one of the sources of Kedusha, one of the biggest sources of Kedusha for that entire generation and probably several generations before, and already having an effect until this day. Now, Rav Elchanan built this yeshiva into one of the largest yeshivot in all of Europe. Although it was eventually destroyed by the Nazis, Yimach Shimam V'Zichram, in 1940, the Rav Elchanan taught hundreds and hundreds of students in his yeshiva. There were people from literally all over the world begging to have him allow their kids to go to his yeshiva. 400, 500, 600 kids. Now, this is again, there's no $2,000 a month tuition over there. There's no like, hey, listen, you have to be from a certain family to accept. You're willing to learn, you're a serious learner, accepted. You mess around, go back home. Go back home. There's no like, oh, you're serious to learn, you're going to commit, come, Baruch haba. No, go back home. You're not fit for this yeshiva. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Kol tuv. There's other yeshivot, I'll write you a letter to help you get into a different yeshiva. This yeshiva is for serious people. So he treated these young kids like his own sons. In fact, in his bio, his own sons write that when there was a shortage of money, which was pretty much standard, and there was not enough money for the boys in the yeshiva to eat normal food, piece of chicken maybe, forget about meat, piece of chicken, something substantial, no, his own family wouldn't eat. There's enough money for the family to eat, why can't we eat? No. If the boys in the yeshiva, 400 boys in the yeshiva are not eating, we're not eating. We're not eating. How many Roshei Yeshivot in the world are still left to do such a thing? Now, during this 20-year time of building the yeshiva in Baranovich, his kedusha affected not only his own students, but all of Europe, to the extent where anyone that knows a little bit about what happened in Poland, HaShem Na'aseh, was full of Jews and was almost completely annihilated. But the Polish Jews did not have the problems like the German Jews. Like the German Jews, majority of them were Reform, were atheists, were anti-Torah. Many of them became Christians and Catholics. Whereas the Polish Jews had virtually no intermarriage whatsoever. No intermarriage whatsoever. Now, there's different reasons of why Hashem does this and does that, which we'll go into we'll find out shortly. But the point is, because you would think you would only punish the bad ones and, not the good ones, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. In our logic it does, but our logic is meaningless. We're talking about divine logic that sees the full picture. But the point is that his Torah affected all of Poland, all of Europe, the entire world. And at that time, he actually became known around the entire world as one of the Gdolei Ador. Alongside his master, his Rav, the Chafetz Chaim, and also his brother-in-law, Rav Chaim Ozer Gruzinski. So here we see that the words of Rav Elchanan Wasserman are not coming from opinions, they're not coming from someone who didn't know what he was talking about or someone that's unknown. Already we see that there's quite a bit of a history. Now, Rav Elchanan Wasserman was a giant among giants, but the main thing that he was recognized for is that his whole life, no matter who was his Rav, no matter what he was learning, no matter what he was teaching, the most important thing for him was to chase after the emet, whatever the emet is. And he was known to teach constantly that the Torah is the testimony that a bribery blinds even the wise. So as soon as a person has a bias of something, even if he knows Torah, even if he's a big chacham, for sure he's going to make mistakes. Because the bias doesn't have to be, the bribery doesn't have to be money. It simply could be a bias that you like your way better. You like your, teachings better. You like your rabbi better. You like the way your community is better. You think that you're better. That alone is a bias that's no different than bribery. And Rav Elchanan Wasserman says, guaranteed you're making mistakes. But mistakes that can be costing people's lives. So he said his goal was constantly to rid himself of all vested interest. And that way, anything that appeared crooked in the past will suddenly look straight. And everything that was difficult will start becoming obvious. Because without any vested interest, all of the truth becomes obvious and self-explanatory. This is actually one of the greatest things that you can tell for yourself, and also if you're helping other people do tshuva, where at first we reject the truth because it negates our reality, our opinion. But as soon as we decide to take action and just listen to what Hashem says with or without understanding it, suddenly what we thought was wrong in the past, what we thought was completely unacceptable in the past, becomes like, wow, it's so obvious. I can't believe nobody else sees this. You know how many times a week people call me, it's like, I don't understand. How come you don't have like 500 million views on every video? Like everything you're saying is true, everything is happening, everything is different. Not everybody has the merit yet to see the emet right now. Why? They have a bias. They have a bribe. What's their bribe? Their bias. Their bias is that they want to continue sinning. They want to continue doing something that's the opposite of what the truth is. And therefore that bias, that bribe, is not allowing them to see the truth as it is. They're not allowing them to see what's straight and what's obvious as it is. They're seeing it as crooked. They're seeing it as a different way. Oh, you're too extreme. What do you mean I'm too extreme? What's too extreme about telling you you're not allowed to do something? Why is that extreme? If I told you you're not allowed to drive past 65 miles per hour on the highway, is that going to be extreme? Well, that's the law. Okay, so how is that being the law? And you accept it any different than me telling you now to drive on Shabbat being the law? And if you drive faster than 65, you're going to get fined. If you drive on Shabbat, you're going to get fined. Only difference is, in this world, the cops may fine you with a little bit of money. HaShem finds you with a whole lot more than money. Why? He's a different level of king. If you slap a soldier may slap you back, he may throw you in jail. But if you slap the king, you spit in the king's face, he's not going to slap you back, I promise you. He's going to make sure that you're not going to have any hands, any eyes, or any memory of any of these things, but in a very, very slow fashion, so everybody else learns too. Does Kiruv that way. So when a person understands who he's dealing with, oh wow, of course I can't do this. Of course I can't do that. That's so obvious. But in the beginning, when he wants to continue sinning, when she wants to continue wearing immodest clothes, no, this is feminist, this is anti. What's anti? What's anti? By preserving your beauty only to your husband, that's anti-women? By not making yourself public property, that's anti-women? By saying that when you said to your husband, I'm yours, and he said, I'm yours, and you sign a ketubah, that you actually became each other, and only you two can enjoy each other's beauty. That's against women? What, you want him to have every woman and you have every guy? That's what you want. Why'd you get married then? And that's the problem. The problem is that people that want to continue sinning, want to continue going against the emet, it's hard for them to see the truth until they simply just take a leap of faith. So we say, you know what? There's enough right that even the stuff that I don't agree with doesn't really make much of a difference. And there have been times, I can tell you personally, there have been times where I learned something and it was just intolerable to me. I was like, what do you mean? How could this be? In the beginning, it was much more difficult. But as I went on and continued learning, there was one time that I learned something, and it was completely like the most baffling thing in the world, completely intolerable for me. But I said to my rabbi, I said, you know what? I don't even care. I know God's real. I know the Torah is real. And whether I understand this thing or don't understand it doesn't really make a difference. There's enough evidence that everything is 100% legit, everything is 100% emet, everything is as it is, that the fact that I don't understand this or it's hard for me to accept it is irrelevant. It's my deficiency. And as soon as I made that commitment, Baruch Hashem, my whole mind and life opened up. Why? Because that's when I jumped in. Until you jump in, it's very, very hard to make the Torah as really part of you. So Rav Elchanan Wasserman would constantly seek for the truth no matter how many years he would study Torah. But the main thing that he ran away from his entire life is a chief rabbinate position, because people constantly wanted him to be a major rabbi, a rabbi of a city, a rabbi of a country, and so on. But he ran away from it because he wanted his main focus to be teaching Torah. Because he knew that if he himself doesn't teach Torah, then the generation will be taught by people that are perhaps not as diligent, not as committed as he is, and it would lead to another generation of ignorant people. So when he would teach Torah, he would look at it no different than how we look at our day-to-day life, which is saving neshamot. He would look at his teaching Torah as saving neshamot, both the body and the actual spirituality of a person. Now, he one time wrote a letter to young Israel, Kila, young Israel, in America in 1938, and he told them that if they want things to improve because of all the bad things that were happening in the world at that time, they must start Torah studying groups, Shiur Torah, and organize elementary yeshivot, taught by people that have Yirat Shamayim, taught people that are actually going to teach Torah. Because the ultimate cause of all of our suffering is that we have forgotten the Torah. Thus, by encouraging Torah study, a person is saving our nation physically as well as spiritually. And anyone who remains indifferent to this program obviously transgresses the pasuk in the Torah, do not stand idly by the blood of your brother. If you don't join this program, both in person, learn in this program, but on top of it, invest money into this publicizing of Torah, into this learning of Torah, you're simply a murderer. That's what Rav Elchanan wrote in a letter to young Israel. He wasn't recommending, oh, this is a good idea. Maybe you guys should start nice shiur, get the keilah together, maybe bring some donuts, some coffee in the morning. Get unity. No, he said, listen, forget unity. You see the problems in the world? It's all happened because we've forgotten the Torah. If you want to save lives, start learning Torah seriously. Invest a lot of money into it. Invest everything into it. If not, you're all murderers. Why? Because all of the problems that are going to happen are happening because you're not learning Torah. But he's not talking about all the problems that are happening to that keilah. He's talking about all the problems that are happening to all of Am Yisrael. You here in New York, you here in Poland, you here in wherever you are in the world, your learning of Torah affects another person in France, in Ecuador, in Poland, anywhere. You're affecting other people. And if you're not learning Torah, you're not fulfilling the Torah, you're not investing in Torah, if he died, it's because of you. So that level of emet, writing a letter like this, publicizing a letter like this against for a major keilah that he's not even a rabbi of. He's in Poland. He's not in New York. He's not in America. Writing, Gedol Ador writes you such a letter, you see that this person does not care about donations or anything remotely close to that. Because usually when people deal with Americans, they're very, very soft with them. It's I know how it is. It's sad. But you see sometimes when strong rabbis come from Eretz Yisrael to America, they talk differently. They talk differently. In Israel, you see their lectures, their video online, oh, what? Bombs. They come to America, oh, unity, everybody loves each other. Where's the bombs? They need tshuva more than the people back home. Where's the bombs? No, they're soft here. Yeah, that's the point. They're soft here. You got to get them stronger. No, they're not going to accept it. They won't invite me again. Wait. Are you looking for invitations? Or are you looking to help people? Get them out of the Genom one-way route that they've made for themselves. What are you trying to do? And that's unfortunately what happens. Because people are worried about donations. Because Americans, Baruch Hashem, have a lot of money. A lot more money than other countries. So people are scared to tell them the truth. And this unfortunately has infested practically every community. Whether it be in Muncie, New York, or it's in Lakewood, or it's in Brooklyn, or it's in Baltimore, or it's in Los Angeles, or it's in Florida, or it's in Israel, or it's everywhere. There's the obsession with money and the lack of emet due to the obsession with money, unfortunately has hurt different keilot different ways. But unfortunately, this is also part of the reason of why you're not going to see these types of shiurim in a massive scale. You're not going to see 5,000 people show up to it like they do to some Shlom Bayit seminar. You have a Shlom Bayit seminar, 500 people show up. You have a baking of a challah, 2,000 women show up. Shiur of Musar to get the whole community to actually wake up, 6 people. If you're really serious, you plan it ahead, maybe 200. Maybe. And that's after you pretty much gave your lung as a donation. And chas v'shalom, if you charge, no one's coming, including you. Why? That's the way it is. So if a person has this bias of money, there's no way he's going to be able to help people do tshuva. Because already his opinion is now in the wrong direction. The bribery that blinds the wise. Now, Rav Elchanan was, to say he was a giant in Torah is an understatement, but they give some of in his bio and other places, they give certain examples that it's truly unbelievable that this was considered a human being. Needless to say, one of our, ancestors. There was one time a Rav Meir Obowitz, alav HaShalom, gave Rav Wasserman, lent him the response of the Shelot v'Tshuvo of the Rivash, one of the Chachamim of Am Yisrael from hundreds of years ago. And he gave it to him, he lent it to him. And he borrowed it for 6 months. And he returned it. And Talmidim say, Rav Obowitz says, 2 years later, they saw Rav Wasserman writing a letter, a response to somebody, and quoting what he read 2 years ago by heart, word for word. Not like, oh, this idea, you can find it on this book. No, word for word, with the apostrophe, with the this, word for word what he read. Like as if the Torah was like, mamash, right in front of him at all times. Like what the Gemara says about Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, where the Gemara says that when you write a sefer Torah, a scroll, you have to always copy it. Meaning you have to look at a sefer Torah and write exactly what you see. So then the Gemara says, wait a minute, but what about Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes? He was also a scribe, but he never looked at a sefer Torah. No, Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes is different. What do you mean he's different? Why? He doesn't have to follow the law? He goes, no. Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, he sees the Torah all the time. He sees the Torah. Not that he remembers it. He sees the Torah. He sees the spiritual Torah all the time. It's just like he has the scroll right in front of him. All the time. Not just when he's writing. All the time. So, you have yourself something extraordinary. A giant chacham. Now, in this generation, anytime somebody thinks of, either wants to be a chacham or thinks of themselves as a chacham, the first thing they want to do, bring chidushim. Bring new insights. Oh, I'm going to give you guys a new shiur. It's full of chidushim. Whose chidushim? Yours. How do we know these chidushim are right? No, they're right. Who verified they're right? Who verified that these chidushim are right? Did you verify with somebody? No, you'll see, you'll understand. Once I say it, you'll understand that it's right. Well, you may be a good speaker and make it sound like you're right, but who says you're right? So, you see that, today there's many books filling shelves full of everybody's new insights. Yet, the ones that actually impact your neshama the most are the ones from 800 years ago, 400 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and so on. The guy that you just wrote a book last week with a couple hundred pages for $29.99, yeah, it's nice, but I don't know, I'm not really sure if this chidush really matches what Rabbeinu Yonah says, and I'm not sure if this chidush that he has over here agrees with the halacha of the Rambam, and I'm not really sure if this chidush even makes sense b'chlal, but it's full of chidushim. So you think that someone like Rav Elchanan Wasserman would have books and books and books full of chidushim. I mean, he is the Gedol Ador. Rav Elchanan was well known to have literally no desire whatsoever to display his skill of bringing chidushim. Because he would tell everybody, to give new interpretations is not our task. Only the Rishonim from 800 years ago had this ability. Our job is only to comprehend what has already been stated. Take your chidushim, put them in a nice basket. Maybe you could look at them once in a while. Bottom line is, look at what the Rishonim said. Look what the giants said. Look what the big people said. Look at that. Understand what it says. If it agrees with your chidush, chazak baruch. But if your chidush disagrees with what they said, throw it in the garbage. Why? Because it's garbage. No, but maybe I'm bringing a new insight. Maybe I'm like face number 71 to the Torah. Never. You're never going to be right and Rashi wrong. You're never going to be right and the Rambam is wrong. Never. It's never going to happen. As the Gemara says in Masechet Shabbat, where many people have a difficulty with this, but nonetheless it's emet, where Rabbi Zera says in the name of Rava Bar Zimona, Im Rishonim bnei melachim, anu bnei anashim, v'im Rishonim bnei anashim, anu kechamurim. If the early ones, and we're talking about these are sages that lived something around 1700 years ago, they're saying if the sages before us, which means let's say 2,000 years ago, if the sages before us the scholars before us, of the previous generations, were like angels, then we are like sons of men. But if the sages before us, from 2,000 years ago, if the sages before us were like men, then we are like sons of donkeys. And this is the sages we learn our entire Torah from, are saying this about themselves. From 2,000 years ago, from 1,500 years ago, they're saying if our sages, the ones from before them, if they're regular people, we are donkeys. If they're donkeys, what are we? So here you see that the more knowledge of Torah a sage has, a Jew has, the more he knows how much he doesn't know. The more he knows how much of a nothing he is in comparison to the sages that came before him. So anytime you see some cowboy that calls himself a rabbi or something else, starts insulting the previous sages or starts mocking it in such a way, or even just talking about them as if they're just like him. As if, yeah, it's no big deal to disagree with the Rambam. It's no big deal to disagree with Gdolei Hador. It's no big deal. I have my opinion. He has your opinion. Like as if you're on the same level. That person, the only thing you should do is press delete. That's it. And run away. Run away from the screen. Probably there's too much on the screen. It may affect you. You may start thinking like him. Because as soon as a person does not recognize his nothingness, you cannot deal with such a person. And that's a problem a lot of times, where people think, no, I don't agree with commentary over here. Who's the commentary by? I think it's the Radak. Radak? Yeah, I think. You know what the Radak was? No, but I just don't agree with what he says. Oh, so you, little 20-year-old, you've been studying Torah since what? 5 years, 10 years? You don't agree with the Radak. You don't agree with Rashi. You don't agree with the Rambam, the Ramban. You don't agree with them. You studied, I don't know, enough time to make me make toilet paper out of you. You don't agree with the sage. You. So for 900 years, no one disagreed with him until you came. So it's not that you're just disagreeing with him. You're disagreeing with all of the sages that agreed with him after, the people that studied for 60, 70, 80 years straight, wrote 50, 100, 200, 300 books full of chidushim you cannot even read or comprehend. But you are going to disagree with him. You. All of you. Like the whole thing. Chazak. Chazak kvod HaRav. Kvod HaRav. I'm going to stand up when I see you. What? You must be bigger than him. If you think that you can disagree with him, you must be bigger than him. You must be bigger than all of the rabbis that came after him. No, why? What's the big deal me disagreeing with him? The big deal is that you don't realize how much of a nothing you are. That's the big deal. The big deal is that you have no idea what you're dealing with. It's like you walked into a surgery room and where the top surgeon in the world is performing the most complicated surgery in the world that he's the only one that can do, and you're just, I don't think you should cut there. Doc, I don't think you should do this. Doesn't look good. He's bleeding. Doesn't look good. Maybe take a break. I'll take over. What? You don't even have clothes on. You have a t-shirt on and shorts. Are you a doctor? No. You went to med school? No. So what makes you think that you're qualified? Oh, I watched some show, House, on TV. It was about some doctor. He diagnosed a lot of people. There were like 9 out of 10 people had lupus. So I figured this guy has lupus. You don't need a surgery. I watched some show on TV. That's what you sound like. As ridiculous as that sounds, that's what it sounds like. Now, when that comes from somebody that's a rabbi, makes videos on the internet, it sounds like, wow, see, this rabbi must be really big. If he's saying that he can disagree with the Gdolei Hador, it must be that this guy is a Gadol. And that's a mistake. That's a mistake of all mistakes. And as the Gemara, Masechet Moed Katan, says, you're only allowed to learn Torah from people that have good midot. If his midot are like a malach, allowed to learn from him. If his midot are not like a malach, forbidden to learn from it. It's a sin, like eating pork. A person that publicly goes against the Gdolei Hador, the Rishonim, the Achronim, the sages of the Gemara, goes against them without having any substantial thing to go with, any substantial thing, other than just his own opinion, is a person that's disrespecting the giants that pretty much kept the Torah alive publicly. Such a person must be a sinner in many other aspects also. Because he has no respect for Torah. So it's important to know that when a gadol is really a gadol, he doesn't really want to be a gadol. He just wants to learn Torah. Rav Elchanan Wasserman, he wasn't interested in being a gadol ador. I'll be the biggest rabbi in the world. I'll have a new book every week with new chidushim, sell it in bars and nobles even. No. I just want to learn Torah. I want to teach Torah, make sure the next generation doesn't kill themselves from their own sins. And this, Rabotai, is one of the greatest things that you see from real Gdolim, that they literally have the humility that's equivalent to the Moshe Rabbeinu of their generation. Now, how does somebody get their mind to such level of commitment when you have a mentality that all you're looking for is the emet, and that's the only concern that you have in life? Then the things of the rest of the world become, less significant, if you will. So one time, Rav Wasserman was studying Chavruta with the Rav Kahneman, alav HaShalom. And they were learning Masechet Chulin, the Tosfot in Masechet Chulin. Serious complication in the Gemara over there that they were going over. As they were learning together, serious sugya, serious complication over there. Somebody runs into the place with a telegram. In those days, there was no email and WhatsApp. Somebody would come, there would be a telegram. Come with a telegram, Morse code, you have to pay a certain amount of money for each letter, so they kept everything short. For the Rav, telegram from your wife, Mazal Tov, you just had a baby boy. Rav Wasserman gets up, makes a blessing Hashem, Atov Mitiv, because this is good, sits down, goes back to the Gemara as if nothing happened. Now us, we say, somebody sends us a text message that they had a baby. Not you had a baby. They had a baby. You start sending messages to everyone. You hear, Reuven had a baby. Oh, mass messages, start making flyers on YouTube, this video, a dedication message to the whole family. Start making phone calls. When's the party? When's this? 4 hours of your life celebrating somebody else's baby. Not even yours. Yours comes, a week planning the Brit Milah. If it was up to you, you'd take 6 months to plant the Brit Milah. But Baruch Hashem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu forced us to wait only a week, because 8th day you have to have Brit Milah. If it wasn't for that, people would delay the Brit Milah for 9 months, preparing the trucks. Like they do with weddings. No, we're getting married. When? Next year, next summer. What do you mean? It's a year and a half from now. Yeah, we have to plan. What are you planning for? UFOs to come? What are you planning for? You know how many sins you're going to make in the next year and a half before your wedding? Go get married tomorrow, get married next week. Maximum, wait a month. Planning. 6 months, a year, 2 years. Many times don't even get married. Or by the time they get married, they don't want to be married. But what are they doing? They're saving up. We're saving up $100,000. For what? To feed a bunch of strangers. Rav Wasserman, alav HaShalom, cared less about all this stuff. Okay, I had a kid, Baruch Hashem, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for giving me something good. Now, I'm going to the ultimate good. What? Torah. Go back to learning. That was his desire. That was his addiction. What an addiction to have. Alvai alenu to have such an addiction. Alvai alenu to have such an addiction on Torah. Now, from time to time, you would have to go collect money. So how does somebody that's addicted to Torah stop himself and tell his 400 boys, I can't teach you for the next month, 2 months, because I got to go to a different country, I got to go to England, I got to go to America, I got to go to different places to collect money. For the Rav that teaches, learns Torah 24 hours a day, doesn't even see his family. Doesn't see his family. He sees his family once every few months. You're going to stop learning Torah to go collect money? Rav Wasserman would teach that if there is a mitzvah that a person has that no one else can perform, he's freed from his obligation to study Torah in order to fulfill that mitzvah. No one else could raise money. That means that I have to raise it. And that relieves me from my obligation to learn Torah. But what is this really to teach us? It's to teach us that if you don't have such a mitzvah, You're obligated to learn Torah 24 hours a day. That's what it's to teach us. Not that he wants to go raise money, chas v'shalom. It's that if you don't have such a mitzvah that no one else in the world can do, which is a very unique circumstance to begin with, if you don't have such a mitzvah, you're obligated to learn Torah 24 hours a day. That's what, in essence, what he's trying to teach. Now, all of this were different things that he learned from his Rav, the Chafetz Chaim, who Rav Wasserman said at the time he passed, that the Chafetz Chaim got to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. Not that he got to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu in Nevuah or anything like that, but he fulfilled the mitzvah that the Rambam says that every Jew can get to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. Not by chokhmah, not by wisdom, not by nevuah, but what? By making themselves completely a servant of Hashem without any desires. An Eved Hashem. Every Jew can become an Eved Hashem. Simply remove your desires and just desire what God wants. He says, my Rav, the Chafetz Chaim, he got there. How do I know? Even when he signed, you know, you have a receipt, you buy something, give you a sign something. Before he would sign, says, this is for kiddush Hashem. You sign a signature. You just bought something from the store. You accepted some package. They want you to sign. Sign here, sir. Rabbi, please sign here. Before he signs, this is for kiddush Hashem. And he signs his name. Meaning, to sign the name is for the sake of sanctifying Hashem's name. Zero desires. And that's his Rav. That's the Chafetz Chaim. Now, Rav Elchanan would explain to people that every single problem that a human being can possibly have, every single problem that simply exists in the world, human or not, is something that only the Torah can solve 100% of the time. Because the concept of justice, the concept of what's correct and what's not, if it depends on humanity, then it varies from generation to generation, and it varies from time to time, and it varies from circumstance to circumstance. What you think is right may not be what Joshua thinks is right. What Joshua thinks is right may not be what Sutton in the back thinks is right. Why? You have different biases. You have different things. Now, what all of you think is right, the Erev Rav for sure don't think is right. Why? That's why they're the Erev Rav. So he says, when it comes to human logic, what's right and wrong is subjective. Here it's right, over there it's wrong. Here it's good, over there it's bad. Here he's making a mitzvah, here he's making a sin. If you shoot somebody, it's murder, but if you're at war, it's a mitzvah. But what if you're attacking them for no reason? Then it's also murder. Even if it is war. If your war is about money, you want to take over a bunch of oil from some country. That's not a war that's a righteous war. That's murder what you're doing. You're just hiring a bunch of soldiers, calling it war, but in reality, it's just mass murder. But if you're trying to protect yourself, protect your people, because somebody's attacking, it's a different story. So the point is that when you think that you're the good guy, the other guy also thinks he's the good guy. He doesn't think I'm the bad guy in this. Everybody thinks they're the good guy because everybody's depending on their own logic, their own human logic. And that's why every problem cannot be solved with human logic, because everyone, at some point, the other party would say this is wrong. But when it comes to the Torah, Rabotai, there is no such thing. Why? Torah has always been the same. Torah has always been the same. Torah has never changed. The Torah and its justice, its emet, is permanent, it's eternal, and whatever the judgment is, whether a person likes it or does not like it, he knows that this judgment is from Shamayim. Now, the last thing we'll learn, at least for now, about Rav Wasserman's personal life, before we even start the letter itself, is the famous story that we learned from an eyewitness by the name of Rav Ephraim Oshri. Ephraim Oshri alav HaShalom was one of actually the Gdolei Israel that not only was in the Holocaust but survived it, Baruch Hashem. But his Sfarim that he wrote are some of the most impressive Sfarim that exist from that time, not only because of his huge amount of wisdom and Torah, but where he made where he actually originally wrote it. Many of the things that he wrote, for example, in his Shelot v'Tshuvot, in his responsa of different questions, were questions that were asked of him during the Holocaust. During the Holocaust. Someone came to Rav Oshri and told him, listen, Kvod Rav, I have a question. I have a son that was just taken by the Nazis. And he's on a line right now to get killed. Now, I happen to have access to a lot of money. And I know that I can bribe the guy, the Nazi. He doesn't care about my son. He just wants to do what he's doing, fulfill his job. The Jew is just a number on the chart for him. If I give the Nazi money, I can buy my son back. But surely because these Nazis, they're so precise, they have to replace this Jew with somebody else. Am I allowed to do that? That's an halachic question. Am I allowed to buy my son? I have the money. Am I allowed to buy my son? But my son's life is going to cost somebody else's son. Am I allowed to do that? That's the type of questions that he had. A person would come to him and tell him, listen, Rav, I have an issue. Why? They broke pieces of my member. Pieces of their body. Can't be a relationship with his wife and so on. All types of horrific things. The craziest questions you could ever imagine comes from this response. Where he saw with his own eyes these things. Horrible things. But you see, I don't even know how you could remember so many books, not only at all, needless to say, while you're being tortured. So he literally wrote all this during the Holocaust. Now, one of the things that he wrote is during the early times. During the early times, the Holocaust ended approximately 1945. But by 1941, already the Nazis, and they already started killing Jews, but not to the same capacity as they did over the next few years. But Rav Oshri writes in his sefer called The Annihilation of Lithuanian Jewry. It's almost impossible to find this book, by the way. I mean, in Hebrew you can, but in English almost impossible to find. But he writes the following. He says that on Sunday, the 6th of July, 1941, which was 11 of Tammuz, in the 9th fort, this was a ghetto that the Jews were in. Many of the Jews, many of the Chachamim gathered together in one of the Rabbanim's house over there, and there was a very uncomfortable situation because people were literally sleeping on, like sardines, but everybody was scared to death to leave the house, to move out of the house, because if you left the house, it's very, very likely you're not coming out. You're not coming back. Now, the Rav Oshri says, I know about how uncomfortable it was because I lived there too. He lived in this house also. And some of the Rabbanim that were in this house were some of the Gedolei Ador, which included HaRav Wasserman. And one day, one awful, dark day that we just mentioned, the Reshaim decided to break into the house. The Lithuanian Nazis busted into the house, shot some shots into the air to get everybody's attention, scared everybody to death, and started laughing, saying, we know that you were trying to organize a rebellion and go to Palestine, meaning go to Israel. But we caught you, and you won't get away with it. Just blame them for doing nothing. Blame them for doing nothing. And they asked all the men to line up. All of these gdoledo, one giant after another, one sefer Torah after another. One of them, Rav Wasserman, they put him at the head. Put him at the head. Now, as they're laughing and enjoying themselves, these Reshaim Arurim, the Rav Wasserman turns around without skipping a beat, without being scared, without thinking of anyone being next to the other, different than the other. His own son was there. He didn't even say goodbye to him, but he knew this is the last time he's going to be able to talk to people. And he says the following: heaven apparently considers us tzaddikim, righteous people, for it wants us to atone with our bodies for Jewry as a whole. So we must do tshuva now, on the spot. Time is short. The 9th fourth is near. We must make up our minds that we truly wish to sanctify a Kadosh Baruch Hu's name. If we do tshuva, we will thereby save the remaining Jews, our brothers and sisters, so that they will be able to carry on as the remnant of Jewry. Let us walk with our heads held high. Let no one think a thought that would disqualify his sacrifice. We are about to fulfill the greatest mitzvah, the mitzvah of kiddush Hashem. The fire that consumes our body is the fire that will rebuild the Jewish people. He was talking about all of the Jews that are in America and in England will survive because he, his son, and the other group of giant chachamim are now chosen by a Kadosh Baruch Hu to become the korban, to become the sacrifice, to save the life of millions of Jews. Not for a second did he question where was God during the Holocaust. Not for a second did he question why is God doing this to me. Not for a second did he question maybe there's something else we can do. But rather he was teaching them a mitzvah. Several mitzvot. First and foremost, understand, you have to do tshuva. It's one of the mitzvot of the Torah. Why do you have to do tshuva? Because if you're going to be a korban, if you're going to die in kiddush Hashem, you have to be a Baal tshuva. You can't just say, no, just because I'm Jewish and I died, therefore it's kiddush Hashem. Like some people like to say. It doesn't work that way. On top of that, the mitzvah of korban has an issue called pigul, where if somebody brings a korban, brings a sacrifice, but in his mind, he doesn't say anything publicly, but in his mind, which of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu reads the mind, in his mind he's thinking, I'm really not interested in doing this. I don't want to really pray. I don't really want to be here. I'm not really doing tshuva. I'm actually going to eat this korban sooner than I'm supposed to. Meaning, he hasn't done tshuva. He hasn't clarified his mind. He's not into this mitzvah 100%. He says, you may fool the people around you, but in Shemaim, it's called pigul, meaning the korban was rejected. And unless we do tshuva and focus ourselves on fulfilling this mitzvah 100%, that right now we are going to do a mitzvah of dying on kiddush Hashem, just like we do a mitzvah of eating kosher, just like we do a mitzvah of keeping Shabbat, just like we do a mitzvah of learning Torah. In order to do those mitzvot, you have to have serious kavanah. So you better have kavanah right now or it's all wasted. When is he saying this? Moments before he's going to get murdered. You can't just do that because you got inner strength out of nowhere for the first time in your life. You had to have prepared for this your whole life. His mind never changed. Even the Rav Oshri that witnessed this with his own eyes, and he himself, Rav Oshri, saw this and somehow escaped miraculously. He was on that line himself. And while the Nazis weren't paying attention, he skipped out. He saw this, he heard this with himself. Eyewitness to the story. He published the story in the newspapers after the Holocaust. He wrote this obviously in his sefer. The key is, when you see such a thing, you say, this is not a person. This is not a human being. This is not a power of a human being. This is the power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in this person. This person has learned so much Torah, has sanctified himself so much, he put HaKadosh Baruch Hu in him. This is not the power of a human being. Why? Human beings, you tell him, listen, you just lost a lot of money, sir. How much a lot of money? Everything. Starts crying. Oh, I'm so depressed. Can't believe I lost this money. Shidduch broke up. She doesn't want to marry me. I can't believe it. Starts crying. Just, I don't want to live anymore. Now, yeah, all that stuff hurts. Don't get me wrong. But if he's crying about that stuff, what if he's on the line to death camp? Where it's not questionable whether you're going to die or not. It's certain. You're dying in a matter of seconds. Shem Yirachem. In the most gruesome, awful way. Rav Elchanan Wasserman died on real Kiddush Hashem. Which is the reason why it's so upsetting when people say such awful things like some people from Pittsburgh that were making some homosexual party, Brit Milah, for a homosexual couple. Yes, some terrorists killed them, so therefore they died on Kiddush Hashem also. Like you're putting these two Reshaim that are going against Hashem publicly in what they call the Pittsburgh Massacre, you're putting them in the same caliber as a Rav Elchanan Wasserman. If that's not a busha, that's not an embarrassment for our entire generation, I don't know what is. Now, if only the Reform and the conservative and the atheist and the Christian said this stuff, I wouldn't even mention it again for the 80th time. The problem is a bunch of Orthodox rabbis said it. Some from here in Florida that are considered big rabbis. Yeah, they all died on Kiddush Hashem. Yeah, they died on Kiddush Hashem. 3 days later, they made a deal with the Arabs. A month later, they signed a deal with the BDS, anti-Israel program. These people that died on Kiddush Hashem, that Tree of Life place, it's part of the BDS. What Kiddush Hashem, you idiots? Just because you're a Jew and you die, doesn't mean you die in Kiddush Hashem. This is Kiddush Hashem. To compare those Reshaim to Rav Wasserman or the Rabbi Akiva v'chaverav, it's mamash Chilul Hashem, not Kiddush Hashem. But that's what happens when people are so focused on political correctness. You see, Rabotai, if a person knows the emet, lives for the emet, only cares about the emet, naturally he's going to have a fight constantly with the shekel, with the lies. Why? Because it's everywhere. Hence the reason of why the Chachamim call this entire world Alma de Shikra, the world of lies. Rav Elchanan Wasserman died in such a way that we only wish we had the merit to do such a thing. The Baal Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, his whole life prayed to die in Kiddush Hashem. He prayed to be martyred. He prayed for some Nazi to kill him and for him to do what Rav Wasserman did 500 years later, 400 years later. So to say that this is not a big deal and just anyone that's a Jew dies, it's just not true. It's not that we want Jews to die, chas v'shalom, but don't distort the Torah just to fit your bill, to fit your agenda, because you're ruining it. You're putting the Reshaim and the Tzaddikim in the same caliber, so why would anybody want to be a Tzaddik anymore? So this is part of the reason of why Rav Wasserman wrote this entire sefer. Because he wanted to elaborate to us that these are the things where rabbis say the opposite of the Torah. Rabbis say things that are against the Torah. Rabbis distort the Torah in such a fashion that you don't even know the difference between Torah and not Torah anymore. He says this is exactly what's going to happen before the Moshiach is going to come. Now, the letter starts the following way. The period through which we are now passing is unique, especially on the stage of Jewish life. We are eyewitnesses to happenings which have never before come into our experience. He's not talking about today, he's talking about his time, obviously. But needless to say, this is about today too. And this is before the Holocaust. This is not during the Holocaust. But as you'll see from this entire thing, he's predicting the Holocaust because he already got word from the Chafetz Chaim almost 10 years before the Holocaust, 9 years before the Holocaust, that the Holocaust is going to happen, and all the details. And Chafetz Chaim at the end of his life was much crying to people. He says, just somebody take me door to people's houses just to get people to do tshuva. Because I see dark clouds and rivers of blood. Chafetz Chaim, almost 10 years. Mamash, so like prophecy. So like prophecy, what's going to happen? He knew. Rav Wasserman knew. One of the most frustrating things in the world that a person can experience is knowing what's going to happen, but there's nothing you can do about it. And he says that we're witnessing something that's never come before. Sensations burst upon us with astounding lightning force. And we stand smitten with wonder and uncomprehending before these events. Bottom line is, we're experiencing something we have no idea what's hitting us. Corona, financial crisis, everything is turning upside down. One day I was rich, the next day I was poor. One day I was healthy, the next day the guy's on a deathbed. What happened? How did all this happen? As it is written in Parashat Kitavo, where Kadosh Baruch Hu says to us as part of the punishment if we don't listen to him, in chapter 28, in a verse number 27, Asher lo tuchal lirapeh, in 28, Yakecha Adonai b'shigaon u'be'ivaron v'tim'on levav. Kadosh Baruch Hu says to us, Hashem will strike you with madness and with blindness and with confounding of the heart. The part of the punishment of when we do not do tshuva and we do not do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, he says that at the end of days, we're going to go crazy with what our eyes are seeing. How the world is turning upside down. One day we had it all, the next day we lost every penny. One day we thought we had everything, the next day we were looking for anything. Mamash, things don't drive you crazy. One day you were voting for the guy, the next day he's voting to kill you. So he says this is stuff that we haven't seen. He says, when does this apply? Such a time. As long as our approach derives from and is based on mortal wisdom. You're only not going to understand what's going on in the world, and it's all going to confuse you when you're depending on your logic. Why? It doesn't make sense. Last week you were rich, this week you were poor. Last week you were the boss, this week you don't even have a job. Last week you were healthy, this week you're sick. HaShem Na'aseh, all these things. If you're using your human logic, it doesn't make any sense how your whole life turned into nothing. But the Rav Wasserman says, but if we delve deeply into the Torah, we shall find everything clear and certain. All the events in Jewish history, both past and present, were foreseen from the very beginning by the Torah and the traditional Agadah. Not only the Torah itself, the 5 books of Moses, the written and the oral Torah, but also the Agadah, the Midrashim. Where some people say, no, you don't have to believe the Midrash, right? Well, I don't know. You could decide what you believe or don't believe in, but some people that are much, much bigger than you say, this is the information you got to know. Oh, it's selective, right? Do what you want. Play with fire yourself. You think that you're bigger than Rabbi Akiva that's talking about Agadah? You think that you're bigger than Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that's in there? Enjoy. Enjoy your road wherever it leads you, which I give you a hint. It's not heaven. Rav Wasserman says that all of this stuff, you got to look at the entire Torah, the written and the oral Torah. Written Torah is clear, 5 books of Moses. Oral Torah, all encompassing. The Gemara, the Mishnah, the Agadot, the Midrashim, Shulchan Aruch, Halacha, Poskim, Zohar, and so on and so forth. All of it. You look at all these things, you're going to see that everything that ever happened, everything that's happening, and everything that will ever happen is in there. What do I mean by everything? Literally everything, including this shiur right now, and me looking at Sunny, and then a second later looking at Joshua. That is also in the Torah if you know how to look, if you know how to find it. Everything is in it. Every single thought that you have ever had or will have is inside the Torah. We're not talking about just the general stuff that happens to the world that's in the Torah. We're talking, it's everything. Everything. You, on the way here, you stepped on a bunch of termites, that's in there. You're going to get married, that's in there. You can have a few kids, that's in there too. Their names, in there also. What's going to happen in the future, the exact date of Moshiach, that's in there also. Who's going to be president next in some country, that's in there too. Everything is in there. Everything. What's our problem? We don't know how to find it. And because we don't know how to find it, we figure, oh, so therefore it doesn't exist. That's our foolishness. Rav Wasserman says to us that everything is in the Torah. It's fact, it's absolute, it's irrevocable. Thousands of years ago, we were told, same parasha, Parashat Kitavo, and God shall scatter you among all the people from one end of the earth to the other. This prophecy has become a reality, where in the past, if there were scattered corners on the face of the globe, which were empty of Jewish habitation, today the refugees have reached even those places. When this Nevuah was mentioned, we were still in the desert. There was just a group of a few million Jews. Hashem said, at some point I'm going to scatter you all 4 corners of the world. You're going to be everywhere. But when he said it, there was a few million Jews in a desert. To say, I mean, the world is big. So for someone to make a promise that there's going to be a Jew literally in every corner of the world, not like there's one Jew in China, so therefore there's Jews there, one Jew in India, one Jew in America, one Jew in Israel, okay, that's 4 corners. No, it doesn't work like that. Hashem says there's going to be a Jew everywhere. Before Moshiach comes, there's going to be a Jew everywhere. Rav Wasserman says, in the past, this was like, how? Now, Baruch Hashem, even more so today, you could literally find Jews in every corner of the world. Which is absurd when you think of the number of Jews we have. If we had 2-3 billion like the Arabs, if we had 2 billion like the Chinese, 2 billion like the Hindus, 3 billion like the Christians, we have all these large numbers, yeah, of course you're going to have a Jew in every corner. But when you have less than 20 million that you know about, and you find those people in every corner, you see how Hashem runs the world with precision. How his prophecies are precise with no questions asked. If we want to interpret contemporary events, we must search after the verses and statements which deal with the period known as Mashiach's time, the era of Mashiach. That is the period of transition from exile to redemption. If you want to find any answers about what's going on, he's telling you, you have to look at all of the verses that discuss the time of Mashiach. Why? That's where you are. He's talking about 80 years ago. Needless to say, it's the same thing now. We're even closer to Mashiach now. Now, he says, you want to know why all these problems are happening, all these different things? You have to look at that section. The prophecies that discuss the times of Mashiach. If we compare the scriptures with events, we shall see in the Torah a clear vision of all that happens to us, as well as the causative factors. Everything spoken in these verses has become real, and all events were prophesied from the beginning. Everything that was happening, he says, and this is before the Holocaust, this is before it got really bad, he says already all of it is written. Everything that happened is written, everything that's happening is written, and everything that's going to happen is written. Pretty much, right now I'm telling you, the future. And it's telling you the reason why. Why? Give you a source, Parashat Kiruv. If you don't go with my laws, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says this is what's going to happen to you. And the time of Mashiach, Rabotai, is a very, very scary time. When people say, Mashiach now, and we can't wait for Mashiach to come, the one confirmation you have is that they've never learned the subject of Mashiach. That's one confirmation you have. Why? Because this is what it says about Mashiach right now, which we're going to go into now. Let's begin to look in the Torah. The era of Mashiach. In the story of the Jewish people, Rav Wasserman says, we can distinguish several well-defined periods. The periods of the Tanaim, the periods of the Amoraim. Tanaim is like Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenos, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The Amoraim, Rava, Abaye, the Savoraim, the Gaonim. These are different periods of Am Yisrael. Gaonim was about 1,000 years ago. And then the later rabbis, which is also known as the Rishonim. The Rambam, Rashi, Ramban, the Rosh. The latest period, which means from the time of the Rishonim already, from 900 years ago, is known in the holy writings as the end of days. And as the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, page 118b, and also in a Masechet Sotah, page 49b, calls it different names. The Gemara calls it the era of Mashiach. Ikveta de Mashiach. That's the Gemara, Masechet Sotah 49b. And the Gemara in Shabbat 118a calls it Chavle Mashiach. Now, what does the Gemara actually say about this time when it mentions these names? It says the expression of the end of days comprises the immediate period before the redemption and the redemption itself. So the end of days, the period of the era of Mashiach, is not only the time before Mashiach, which we're in now, but also the actual Mashiach itself. Whereas the time of Mashiach refers only to the last days of the Chavle Mashiach. That's called Chavle Mashiach. It's pretty much the last stage, which is actually where we're in. We are in that last stage. Now, why is there a significant difference? You'll know in a moment. Maimonides, the Rambam, states that in reference to this period, all the words of the prophet are full of this. Meaning, the Rambam writes that all of the prophets, every single one of them without an exception, discuss the end of days. And now the Rav Wasserman gives a couple of examples. He says, in truth, even the Torah, the Rin Torah, the 5 books of Moses, as well as the prophets, discuss this. The state of Klal Yisrael, both spiritual and material, is described in Daniel 12, verse 1. What does Daniel 12, verse 1 say? It says a prophecy of what's going to happen before Mashiach comes. Daniel, also a few thousand years ago, Rabotai, almost 2,500 years ago, was at a time of the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, the first Bet HaMikdash, so this is 2,600 years ago, where Nebuchadnezzar Rasha, which the Midrash says was actually one of the descendants of Shlomo HaMelech, destroyed the Bet HaMikdash, and Daniel was the Gdol Ador in that generation. And the Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin says that if the Mashiach came at the time of Daniel, Daniel would be the Mashiach. So what is this Daniel, who told the prophecies of what's going to happen at the end of the world to Nebuchadnezzar? A famous story of the statue that had a gold head and silver and so on and so forth. But then a little piece of stone broke the whole thing. He was giving him a prophecy of what's going to happen to every civilization that would run the world from the time of Nebuchadnezzar, which Hashem decided would be the strongest king in history until the time of Mashiach. From his time until the time of Mashiach. And the prophecy also that Daniel said was what's going to happen to us at this time. In chapter 12, verse number 1, he writes, "Verabim mishned admat afar yakitzu ele lechaya olam, ve'lerafot lidron olam." Oh, I'm sorry, it's verse number 2. Oh, so yeah, so he said at the time Michael will stand. Michael is Michael is the Malach, the great heavenly prince who stands in support of the members of your people. And there will be a time of trouble, such as there had never been since there was a nation until that time. Since the time of the end of days, the time of Moshiach, Am Yisrael will see problems, trouble, disaster, worse than they've ever seen before. Worse than Egypt. Worse than the Holocaust. Worse even than the time of the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash. Now, anyone that wants to know what happened at the time of Bet HaMikdash could read the Midrash Echa, Lamentations. The Midrash over there, I did several shiurim about it, especially on Tisha B'Av. You read about it, you see atrocities. Or if you want to look at the commentary on Tehillim, on Psalm 136, where David HaMelech prophesizes, even before the building of the first Bet HaMikdash, David HaMelech prophesizes what's going to happen at the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash in that Tehillim. And he says how the Reshaim, the evil army of Nebuchadnezzar, is going to take Jewish babies and smash their heads on stones. Make rivers of blood. In that Tehillim. Look at the Gemara, Masechet Gitin, page 58, 59. Discusses all the atrocities that happened at the time of the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash. What they did to us. What they did to our grandparents. And what's worse, Daniel is saying, before Mashiach comes, it's going to be worse. Worse than that. He says this is also stated by the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 30. Where Daniel first says that the oppression of these days will exceed anything that happened to Israel from the day it became a nation. That is, that it will outdo even the oppression of the time of the destruction of the temple. And the same thing is mentioned by Jeremiah, which lived at a different time. Jeremiah 30, verse 7. Jeremiah also gives us a prophecy that is meant to scare us to death. That's why it's there. It's not meant to be hidden. It's not meant to be ignored. with Jeremiah, who saw the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash with his own eyes. He says, woe for that day will be momentous. There is nothing like it. There will be a time of trouble for Yaakov, but he shall be saved from it. It shall be on that day, the word of HaShem, Master of Legions, that I will break off the yoke of the conquerors and your neck, and I will tear your straps, and foreigners will no longer enslave you. Before he says, before that salvation comes, the Moshiach comes, he says, woe to that generation. But in the end, it's going to be okay, which is what we're going to get to in a second. Now, the Rishonim discussed this extensively because they were working off of the teaching that they had of the Tanaim of the Amoraim. And what did they say in these Gemarot? So Rav Wasserman mentions the Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin, Perek Chelek. Perek Chelek is a very famous section of the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin because it discusses all of the people that have no share of the world to come, and also discusses the times of Moshiach. And it gives different things that are written about the end of days. Rabbi Eliezer, which is talking about Rabbi Eliezer ben Holkinos, the rabbi of Rabbi Akiva. Im Yisrael, Rabbi Eliezer אומר, אם ישראל עושים תשובה נגאלים, ואם לא, אין נגאלים. אמר לרבי יהושע, אם אין עושים תשובה, אין נגאלים, אלא הקדוש ברוך הוא מעמיד להם מלך שגזרותיו קשות כהמן. וישראל עושים תשובה, ומחזירן למוטב. Translation. First, Rabbi Eliezer says, if the Jewish people don't do tshuva, Moshiach's never going to come. Simply never going to come. So Rabbi Yeshua said, no, it's not that Moshiach's not going to come. There has to be a time. There has an end. There has to be an end. So how do we, what's that, what is the full clarity of what he's trying to say? He says, if Am Yisrael does not do tshuva, then Hashem, the Holy One, blessed is He, will appoint a king over them whose decrees are as harsh as Haman, Hitler, and worse. And then the Jewish people will do tshuva. And then God will save them and bring them back to the good path. Meaning, tshuva, the end is going to come in two ways. Either we do tshuva by ourselves, everybody does tshuva. Moshiach comes, Baruch Hashem, everybody shomer Shabbat, shomer mitzvot, shomer abrit, shomer everything. He says, but if everybody doesn't do tshuva, that's what's going to happen. Hashem is going to put Hitler again. Hashem Yilachem. Why? Hashem uses Hitler, He uses Haman, He uses Nebuchadnezzar, He uses Titus, He uses all these Reshaim in order to get Am Yisrael to do tshuva. Now, the sages were so petrified of this time that they didn't want to live to see it. As they asked Rabbi Eliezer ben Holkinos, what do you say about this time? He says, in regards to this end of days, it says, let it happen, but let me not live to see it. And he's not the only one. Many of them, all the sages. Let it happen. We want the Moshiach to come. Why? Because Moshiach comes, that's the culmination of the world, that's the climax of the biggest kiddush Hashem that's going to have it happen. Am Yisrael, the ones that remain, will do tshuva. It's great. But the nightmare that will happen before, he says, I don't want to experience it. I don't want to deal with it. I can't. I don't want to do it. And this is the sages. This is people that knew the future. This is people that were able to resurrect the dead. These people didn't have desires like us, watching movies or something. Rabbi, can I watch a movie? Torah movie? No, there's like a movie that just came out, X-Men, Batman, some type of man. Can I watch it? No. Come on, you're so strict, Rabbi. Watch it, go. Watch it, go. Well, I made the rules. Go watch it. Go smash your head against the wall too if you want. You asked me yes or no. I told you no. You don't want to listen. Don't listen. Why you ask me then? How come this other rabbi said yes? Because he's probably watching it with you. He's making a sin. You're making a sin. Only his sin is worse. Why? He's a rabbi. The Gaon Vilna is now being quoted by Rav Wasserman. The Gaon Vilna in a sefer, Eben Shlema, in Perek Yud Aleph, 11, says that the redemption is called the rebirth. The rebirth where it says, Zion hath ailed and born. As it says in Isaiah 61, 8. The prophet Isaiah also gave prophecies of what's going to happen at the time of Moshiach. And he says something that is very interesting. Says prophet says that for I am HaShem who loves justice and hates a burnt offering bought with robbery. Meaning if you're giving tzedakah with non-kosher money, it makes me actually hate you, not think you're tzedakah. And I will repay their deeds in truth, and I will seal an eternal covenant with them. Their offspring will be known among the nations, and their descendants amid the people. All who see them will recognize them, that they are the seed of Hashem that Hashem has blessed. It says after all said and done, you'll see who's the good ones, who's the bad ones. It's not necessarily going to be the guy that has the biggest tzedakah. But the prophet Isaiah also says that time of Moshiach, it's going to be a rebirth of the people. So the Gaon Vilna says, what does this mean? It says the Hebrew people will then be reborn, and just as the pains, the birth pangs of birth develop as the time of birth approaches, so also will be the messianic pangs preceding the redemption. And towards the approach of the Moshiach, as he approaches, the pain increases and the severity increases from day to day. As you see things get worse, that's a confirmation we are closer to Moshiach. So people say, oh yeah, I'm just hoping for good times. Oh, so you're looking to delay the Moshiach? No, I just don't want bad stuff to happen. Okay, you don't want bad stuff to happen, do tshuva. Do tshuva, that's a good thing. But if you think that good things are going to happen without tshuva, you're mistaken. It doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. Why? Because this is the way the structure of the world works, of how Kadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. As Rav Wasserman says in this final section of this particular ma'amar, he says the same sequence of events was experienced in Egypt. At the beginning of the last phase of the Egyptian subjugation, Paro decreed in Exodus chapter 4, let the work be heavier, straw was not given, and we are told to make bricks, where Paro made us work harder without even giving us the tools to work. Meaning it became night. It went from a nightmare to a night terror. So Rav Wasserman says in our days too, there are countries which deprive the Jewish people of all means of livelihood and at the same time increase their burden of taxation. So now, this is the first section of the letter. The question is though, how do we compare all of this to what's happening today? Now what happened right after he wrote this letter, the Holocaust, millions of people died, we see, oh, yeah, he was right on the money. But he wasn't writing it for his generation. When Chachamim write something, they write something that's permanent part of the oral Torah, meaning permanent part of the Torah for us. He's talking about time of Mashiach. How does this compare to the world today? He says that things are going to get worse before they get really better. Mashiach comes. So one of the places that he mentioned as a source that we have about the times of Mashiach, where it's called Ikvetah de Mashiach, is a section of the Gemara Masechet Sotah that talks about the end of days in page 49b. It says, Beikvot Mashiach chutzpah yizgeh. The time of Mashiach, there's going to be insolence. People are going to make fun of the Torah. People are going to be just simply rude. They're going to just do things that are against what human nature used to be. Making their business in the streets. And I'm not talking about making their business like their waste. I'm talking about the stuff that happened between a man and a woman in the streets. So much so that you actually now see rabbis that are supposed to be the scholars with the Torah knowledge have pictures posted publicly being affectionate with their wife when Allah says you're not even allowed to hold your wife's hand in public. Forget about showing affection to your wife, hugging, kissing, stuff like that. You have rabbis like Goldberg and Company that has, and others that have pictures of somebody else's wife that they're hugging, which is Isur of Eshet Ish. You're not even allowed to look at a woman that's forbidden to you, by the way. Just so you know, it's halacha. If a woman's forbidden to you, you're not allowed to look at her. You could say hello and look away. But to just simply stare at a woman that's forbidden to you, whether because she's not Jewish she's forbidden to you, or she's somebody else's wife, forbidden completely. So, for a person to hug that woman that's somebody else's wife, you have a serious problem. You being a rabbi and doing it, now it's at the level of Chilul Hashem, which the Torah tells us there's no repentance for Chilul Hashem until death. That's the beginning of repentance. But Rav Blazel, the Talmid of Rabbi Yisrael Misalan, gives a chidush that kiddush Hashem fixes Chilul Hashem. But kiddush Hashem is not exactly easy to do. Point being, Rabotai, says, how does such a thing happen where 100 years ago, even the goyim, when they would go in public, they wouldn't touch their husbands. They wouldn't touch their wives in public. They would go to the beach with more clothes on than you have rabbaniyot walk around in the streets with. Look at pictures from 100 years ago of how the goyim used to go to the beach. Dresses this big, 15 times bigger than them. No one knew what the shape of the body was. Covering their hair. There was never a thought of hugging your wife or somebody else's wife in the streets, putting a picture on social media with this. Never even a thought of such thing. Today, it's not only the people doing it, with even less clothes, but you actually have so-called leaders doing it. Why? First nevuah came true. Chutzpah tizgeh. People have no shame whatsoever. Why is chutzpah a big deal? Because that's the first thing that Adam HaRishon learned. As soon as they made the sin, they touched the forbidden fruit, what happened? They got shamed. Why? They were naked. Well, how come you didn't realize that you were naked a minute before? They didn't have the knowledge, didn't have that. Now that you have shame, that's a good thing. You understand? You need to protect yourself. You need to cover yourself. Yeah. Problem is, people are retracing back to not having shame. But that's a mistake. Why? Because it's not just Adam and Chava. There's millions of people. Then he says that the cost will soar. Price of everything will soar. If you look at the price of houses right now we have to move again for the 5th time in 6 years. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us so much, he likes to make sure that we feel the exile. Every year and a half, the landlord sells the house, I have to get another house. It's unbelievable. First house in Boca Raton. Lived there for, he doesn't want to renew it after a year. Second house. Then the whole chaos happened with the missionary thing. Left there. Went to the house in Hollywood. Remember then the guy sold the house, and then the moving company stole my stuff, did all types of fun things to my stuff, moved to this house. Landlord says, listen, we're not selling, we're just renting. Paid like clockwork. Ishtabach Shimo. What do you say to me? Oh yeah, we're selling the house. Yeah, but you said you're not going to sell that. Yeah, you changed your mind. Anyway. Oh, wait, what about the other stuff that you promised that if you change your mind? Yeah, I changed my mind on the other stuff. Yeah, but you said that if you change your mind, you're going to actually help me out. If, because that was the whole point. Yeah, I changed my mind. On both. On everything. Oh, so you're a thief. Well, why are you being so combative? No, I'm just saying, you're stealing. You agreed to something and now you don't want to agree. Well, why are you arguing with me? I'm not arguing, I'm just telling you you're a liar. I'm just saying the truth. You're a liar. You're a thief. Just saying. In case you didn't know. Oh, wow, I guess you see it that way. What is that? Rabotai, chutzpah. People don't even understand that they're doing something wrong. They're stealing in open daylight. Gezel is normal for people. I need to get ahead. I need to do whatever I got. Take the money, you don't do nothing. Yeah, but I just hired you to do something. Yeah, we couldn't do it. Yeah, but I picked you, give me the money back. No, I spent it. So you just robbed me. You might as well just come to the house, take the money, and leave. Like, what's the difference? Why? At least I didn't do that. Oh, so it makes you better then? Like, they make themselves like they're tzaddikim. Well, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just spent the money, Like, it's normal for people to steal. Chutzpah. Even more so, prices. Prices will soar, making it even worse. Now, okay, you want to rent a new house, you want to move, okay, Baruch Hashem, next house, oh yeah, it's 20% more expensive, 30%, 40%. What do you mean? But it's smaller and more expensive? How? The economy is going to nothing right now. You have Corona. You have entire real estate companies declaring bankruptcy. Yeah, we don't know, but for some reason, price is going higher. Why? Shtabach Shimo, Nevuah, another prophecy. It says, the vine will yield its fruit, yet the wine will be dear. Price of wine. You go to the store right now, you want to buy a bottle of wine. The wine's worth maybe 5 cents with the taste that it has, but they sell it to you for $15. The government will turn to heresy. If I have to explain this, look what's happening in the world today, and I'm not talking about the non-Jewish world. The whole thing that's happening with America. I'm not talking about what's happening in Eretz Israel right now. Until now, for the last 70 plus years, it has been a law, because of all the tragedies that Am Yisrael has endured, has suffered through over the last 2,000 years from the Christians specifically. It's a law that, listen, there's a big world out there. There's 8 billion people in the world. There's only a few million that actually exist that are Jews. And only half of them live in Israel. Leave us alone with your Christianity. You have 99.9% of the world to preach your nonsense of Christianity. Israel, leave us alone. And until now, it has been illegal for missionaries to missionize in Eretz Israel. Illegal. You do it, you go to jail. Rabotai, with this evil government and evil people behind business that only care about money, what do they just do? The hot TV, Imach Shimam Vezichram, the leading cable company in Eretz Israel, just signed a 7-year contract with a station, a worldwide missionary station called God TV, to publicize Christianity in order to convert all of the Jews in Eretz Israel, chas v'shalom. The guy goes on TV from God TV, and he says, for the first time in history, and he's excited, we're going to preach the gospel to all of the Jews in Hebrew, and this is the first time, 7-year deal. It's illegal. You have 200 countries that you have this cable channel in. Leave us alone in Eretz Israel. Leave us alone. No. We paid the government some money. We paid the cable company some money. Approved. Yeah, but it's against the law. It's only against the law if you don't have the money. It's only against the law if you don't have the money. If you have the money, you make the law. Rabbi Tovia Singer's crying fire out of his eyes trying to fight this. But how much could he do? A few other rabbis in Eretz Yisrael are crying fire, crying. What danger we're in Eretz Yisrael, Because who are they going to be teaching? The people that have TV. Who has TV? The most ignorant people in Eretz Yisrael. Not like Talmidei Chachamim have TV. The ignorant people have TV. And what are they going to watch? Oh, we're going to watch sports. No, I don't feel like it. Cartoons, I don't feel like it. Oh, look, this guy's a good speaker. Oh, he just said God. Okay, let's listen to him. Next thing you know, the guy becomes a Christian. This, for the first time in history, is happening right now. The station is live right now. There's a lawsuit. They're trying to stop it, but only a Kadosh Baruch Hu's mercy can stop it. Most people don't even know this is happening. No, most people don't even care. So let them preach. So don't watch it if you don't like. Like, it's no big deal. If it's no big deal, then go focus on the other 200 countries that you're in. Why do you have to go to Israel? Why? Because their New Testament, that's full of lies and venom, says to them that their false Moshiach will only come when they ruin all of Am Yisrael and turn them into Christians. That's what their false testament says to them. Their goal is to convert all of the Jews. They rather kill the entire world physically and spiritually just to convert one Jew. One Jew. I'm not talking about all of the Jews. One Jew. Doesn't matter. You tell them, listen, there's 8 billion people. Not all of them are Christian. Maybe 2.5, 3 billion are Christian. So that means you got 5 billion customers, prospects. Go focus on them. No, we want the Jews. Yeah, but why? Why? Even if you chas v'shalom succeed, you convert 10 million more. How's that going to affect you? You already have 2.5 billion. Go focus your billions of dollars on the other 6 billion. You'll get a lot more. No, our Moshiach will only come if the Jews dafka, if they convert. What does that show you? This is part of the original battle of creation between good and evil. It makes no sense whatsoever. But this is part of the prophecy. It's happening right now. The government will turn to heresy. Many of them are atheists, many of them are lefty liberals, and many of them are Christian supporters. And there shall be no rebuke, he says. How many people are speaking out against this? How many people are speaking out against anything? You count them in one hand. The erstwhile meeting place of sages will be used for harlotry. The Siyata Dishmaya, I have this prophecy, saw it actually come true today. It says the place of the sages, of the Chachamim, the Bekneset, will turn into harlotry. Zonot are going to come there. The biggest Bet Knesset in India was just in the paper today. Biggest Bet Knesset, supported originally by the Ben Ish Chai. Empty because there's coronavirus. So what do they decide to do? They want to make a little bit of money. So what do? They have a bunch of zonot modeling inside the Bet Knesset, almost naked. Inside the Bet Knesset. I got people from India crying on the phone. Well, what do we do? What do we do? I said, well, kill the people? I don't know what to tell you. What do you mean, what to do? The guy, the president of the shul, should be shot. And if it's illegal to do that, then at least banned. Yeah, but he has most money. Okay, so shut the whole Beit Knesset and go somewhere else. You're not allowed to go to Beit Knesset. Beit Knesset like this, I'd be surprised if HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't burn that Beit Knesset this year. And even more surprised if he doesn't burn that guy that did this whole deal. The president of that shul, if he doesn't burn him inside his house. To turn a Bet Knesset into a Bet Zonot, HaShem Yishmor v'yatzil. But this is a prophecy. It's a prophecy. And by the way, it's not the first one. It happened also in Tel Aviv too. About a year and a half ago. They had a runway show inside a Bet Knesset. The Galilee will be destroyed and the Galvan desolated. The people who dwell in the borders will wander about from town to town, but they will not be succored. The wisdom of the scribes will decay. Very few Talmidei Chachamim. I have some people tell me, yeah, I'm learning the Gemara, this, how many years? Oh, I'm learning already for 10, 15 years. Oh, how many times did you complete the Shas? Oh, no, I just completed 3 Masechtot. 15 years, 3 Masechtot? I got Baalei Teshuva for 2 years already finished more than 3 Masechtot. What happened to you? Oh, no, I take my time. What are you waiting for, 90 years old? What do you do with your time? No, I work. How much do you work? 50 hours a day. What do you work? You have to make time to learn. You have to make time to learn. Yeah, Rabbi, I got this. Oh, well, what do you do with your time? Oh, you find out the guys waste a lot of time, watch sports, watch TV, this, that. So it's not that he's busy. It's waste time. Waste time with nonsense. Why? Wisdom is not appreciated. Torah wisdom is not appreciated. People think they could get happiness in a different way. So the wisdom of even people that call themselves chachamim will decay. Many times you people that call themselves rabbi don't even know halachot Shabbat. Nothing. And those who dread sin will be despised. Anyone who talks against these people, hated. Somebody sent me an email last night. Says, Rabbi, I'm so sad. What happened? All these people on this message board are talking against you. I said, Bruchim HaBaim, welcome to the club. Oh, this happened before? I said, it happens every day. What do you mean? It happens every single day that people talk against me. You know what the good news is? There's more people talking for me. Why? Because they're doing tshuva. But surely there's going to be people talking against. What do you think? If it was that easy to get people to do tshuva, everybody would be doing it. Yeah, but how come they say such nasty things? Because I'm the one that tells them that they're going to Gehenom. I'm just reminding them of their future. And they don't like it. They like the guy that tells them that they're going to a fictional Gan Eden. Simple. Anyone that tells people that they're sinners is going to have enemies. The truth will be absent. This is going to discourage people from telling the truth because they can't handle people going against them. Yeah, I rebuked these people. I really gave it to them. No, okay, so do it again. No, I didn't. I don't know, a bunch of guys. There was less people came next time. So I'm going to do a different lecture this time. What do you mean? You got 100 people last time? Yeah. How many people came the second time? 10. Okay, so teach the 10 the truth. No. I think I'm going to change it up a little bit to get back to 100. Why? At least the 10 you're going to save. The Rambam writes, if I give a lecture to 10,000 people and 9,999 went against it because they don't like the truth and only one did tshuva, I care less about the 9,999 because I only came to save that one that's looking for the truth. We're not looking for fans. We're not looking for likes. We're not looking for views. Surely we would like to have more fans and more views and more likes and more Baalei Tshuva. But that's not what we're doing here. What we're doing is saving Neshamot. Whoever wants to be saved, Baruch haba, welcome. You want to go against? Enjoy yourself. We'll see who's laughing in the end. We'll see who's laughing in the end. Don't speak out to the public if you're not going to tell people the truth. Why? There's a bunch of liars already. We don't need more. We don't need more liars. We don't need more people that sugarcoat everything and tell everyone you're all fine. Enough of that already. Yeah, I want to be a speaker. Why? I want to, give people chizuk. How are you going to give them chizuk? Tell them stories. Stories are nice, but they're not going to give people to change their life. So, you have to understand, this is not an easy business. It's not easy to tell people that they're wrong. Why? There's a prophecy that's telling you outright you're going to have a lot of enemies. Meaning, there's no such chance of you not having enemies. If you don't have enemies, that means you're not telling people the truth. If everybody likes you, that means you're not telling people the truth. Gemara says it. If there's a Rav of a city and everyone likes him, dangerous. That guy's a Rasha. Everyone likes the Rav, he's a Rasha, for sure. Why? He's not telling people the truth. It's impossible that everyone's going to like you. You have to have enemies. Not because you want it, but just because there are people that are against the truth. Youth will blanch the faces of the elders. Elders will stand in the presence of minors. No respect from the younger generation. No respect whatsoever. I get parents calling me crying. My kid's cursing me out. My kid's yelling at me. My kid didn't come home yesterday, and so on and so forth. All types of things that are against the Torah. all types of things that are against the Torah. Parents are simply struggling with their kids. Instead of kissing their feet, the kids are torturing the parents. Instead of saying, thank you, Ima and Abba, for giving me food to eat and a house to live in, the kids are yelling at their parents because they didn't buy them a brand new car yet. That's part of the prophecy. All of this, Rabotai, and more, it's part of the prophecies of the end of days. And last but not least, it says that the daughter-in-law, the son will deride the father, the daughter-in-law will go against the mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the people of his household. Guy's going home, his whole family makes fun of him. Woman goes home, instead of everybody says, oh, Ima, instead of that, they make fun of her. No, Ima, when are you going to clean? No, Ima, when are you going to cook? Yeah, well, I was working all day. Yeah, working, no schmorking. No, come on, make us some food. Like she's some shifcha, she's some cleaning lady. Guy comes home, instead of the kids get excited to see the father. Abba, can I have some money? You didn't even say hello to me yet. Hello, you didn't say. No, okay, hello. Can I have money now? Calls his father by the first name, sits in his chair. What kind of generation is it? Generation of dogs, not people. And that's why the prophecy ends who says, Pnei ado ke pnei kelev. Who's the fault of all this? It says the generation is going to be the generation will be face of a dog. Interestingly, Rav Wasserman gives a chidush on this particular part. He says, why does it say face of the generation is the face of a dog? He says, because usually the master is the one that leads the dog. He tells the dog where to go. But the dog likes to walk in front of him. Even though the master runs the show, the dog likes to walk in front of him. But every so often he looks at the master, he says, where do I go? I go here, I go there. He says, at the end of days, at the time of Moshiach, unlike any other time, the rabbis of the generation are going to be the dog. And the ignorant public is going to be the person. Where the rabbis, instead of being the person that's leading the dog to the right place, the rabbi is going to be the dog. Where he's going to constantly ask, can I say this? Can I talk about Shabbat? Oh, no, okay. Can I talk about Nidah? No. Can I talk about Kashrut? No. Can I talk about Pgam Brit? No. What can I talk about? Shlom Bayit. Oh, but we did Shlom Bayit already 6 years and all. Yeah, make it a series. Shlom Bayit. What do you want to talk about? I don't know, when a husband loves a woman. When a woman loves a husband. You know, we talked about it for 6 years straight. Okay, so talk about Sinat Chinam. Sinat Chinam. What was Sinat Chinam? You going to solve it? You going to stop hating your neighbors? No, but it's always good to pretend like we are. Rabbis are asking people for permission of what to talk about. Hey, Rabbi, listen, I want you to come to my kehillah and speak. Okay, great. I'll come. Okay, what are you going to talk about, Rabbi? Well, whatever you guys want. Well, listen, you can't really talk about Shabbat and the Holocaust and Tikkun Brit and Musar and, okay, so what do you want me to talk about? Care Bears? Why do you have me come? For what? No, give us chizuk. Watch YouTube. That's chizuk. People want to tell the rabbis what to say. The rabbis have become so scared they've turned into dogs. That's what Rav Wasserman says. He says it in his letter. It's supposed to be the leader, not the follower. But that's what's happening. Now, interestingly enough, Rabotai, so far he hasn't mentioned a single thing about Teshuva. Why? He wants to get the audience to first acknowledge that all of these horrible things are happening. The world is turning upside down. All of this was written in the Torah. Once you realize that everything was written in the Torah, the whole thing that's upside down, it's happening, was written in the Torah, now we could talk of why. Now we could talk about why. Because so far he hasn't talked about Teshuva. He hasn't talked about the reason. He says there is a reason, and the prophets wrote about what the reason is, but he hasn't told us what the reason is. That we're going to do next week. But so far, he wants people to recognize the emet. Recognize that everything that's happening in the world is written in the Torah. What happened before, what's happening now, which therefore tells us that what's happening next is also in the Torah. Now, the question is, how come the whole issue of Mashiach is compared to birth pangs? We're going to finalize with this point that's going to put things in a slightly different perspective. You see, birth pangs, I've never given birth. Even though I look pregnant, never did. Promise. But I can tell you from experience, watching my wife, that birth, carrying a baby is not so much fun. Not so much fun. But it gets much more difficult as you get closer to the actual pregnancy day. I had a woman call me yesterday, or text me yesterday, Rabbi, can I eat non-kosher food? I really have it. No, you can't. Yeah, so I'm just going to suffer? Well, you could, I don't know. You can't eat non-kosher food. What do we tell you? Yeah, but I'm really pregnant. Okay, you can really pregnant and eat something else. I don't know what to tell you. There's no permission. But it's hard. But guess what? That difficulty, that desire of that non-kosher burger, that baby kicking you in the middle of the night, all that stuff, that's nothing. Nothing in comparison to the moment before you actually give birth. Nothing. Look, all the 9 months of unpleasant, after unpleasant, some women throw up, some women don't have any energy, some women, all types of things. Different women, different things. Now, all of that's difficult. But the second the water breaks, it's time, pain starts. But even that pain is nothing in comparison to the last moments before you're about to give birth. I had one woman, tzadikah. She told me, if I had a knife, I would have slit my wrist from the pain that I experienced giving delivery to the baby. If I had a knife, I'd kill myself. Now after the baby's gone, Baruch Hashem, everything's good. But the second you're experiencing that second, that moment, however long that is, so I would have just killed myself. It's impossible to imagine. Thank God it's only women, by the way, because guys would have killed themselves, for sure. They would have already planted the gun. Hey, Doc, put the IV on this side. Put the IV on this side. I need my right hand. Rabotai, the second before you give birth, nightmare. Rav Wasserman says, the whole issue of Mashiach, that's what it's symbolized by. The more we get closer to that day, life will turn into a nightmare in the world. You have Christians attacking us in every corner, but now for the first time ever, they're actually winning in Eretz Yisrael. They're winning in Eretz Yisrael to have a cable channel, to have missionaries all over the streets, to have these different organizations that are popping up left and right all over Israel, Hashem Yishmo. And if that's not bad enough, they're also popping up in different Jewish neighborhoods in America, in Lakewood, in Muncie, in different places. One guy came out a year ago, says there's a new version of the New Testament in Yiddish, which means that a Jew translated it to Yiddish. Why? Targeting the Jews. They're targeting us. If that's not bad enough, look what happened to the yeshiva system in New York right before this whole coronavirus thing happened. They all got shut down practically, threatened by the government. Why? Because they want you to teach pretty much a whole day of secular study and just pretend you're a yeshiva. The yeshivot today that supposedly teach kids, a lot of them come to me, they don't know Aleph Bet, they don't know anything. One guy calls me today, he's like, listen, Rabbi, my sister's 20 years old, she went to yeshiva her whole life. I said, okay, so what's the problem? She asked me today to ask you, how can we prove that we didn't come from monkeys? Because she thinks we came from monkeys. I said, she went to yeshiva? He says, for the whole life. The whole life she went to yeshiva. She went to seminar, whatever, girls religious school. But she's sure we came from monkeys. If that's a yeshiva, better go to public school, save the money. What do we have? What do we have in the world? Confused people. Confused. And it's getting worse. It's getting worse. The question is, why does birth get worse? Why can't Hashem just spread out the pain for 9 months? To teach us an extremely valuable lesson that I learned just today for you from Rav Elchanan. You see, Rabotai, before all of this started, there was Adam HaRishon and Chava. They were made by Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. Now, many people that talk about Adam HaRishon, they minimize it like he's just like one of them. Why? He couldn't control his desires. The Gemara in Masechet Baba Batra, page 58a, has one of the sages who used to measure the caves. One time went into the cave of Ma'achpelah. And he said he saw the image. He didn't see himself. He saw the image of Adam HaRishon. And he saw his heels. The heels of Adam HaRishon. He says the heels of Adam HaRishon were like 2 suns. That's how bright they were. That's how beautiful they were. Like sun, like almost a sun. They emanated light like the sun. The Torah tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu's face was like the sun. What does that mean? The heel, spiritually speaking, is the lowest part of the body. Because it touches the floor the most. So in essence, it gets the most amount of tumah. That's why every time you touch your feet, you have to wash your hands. Every time you touch your feet, you have to wash your hands. Because why? There's just, you can't purify that part. The heel is the most impure part of the foot. Doesn't make it bad. It's just is what it is. He says that, the sage says, he saw in his eyes, says, the heel, the worst part of Adam HaRishon, was like the sun. 2 balls of sun. Moshe Rabbeinu, Isha Elokim, Moshe Avdi. He says his face looks like the sun. The highest level of Moshe, understand this, the highest level of Moshe was like the feet of Adam HaRishon. As far as this, what we're learning here. If it wasn't written, we wouldn't be allowed to say such a thing. So we have no concept of how great Adam HaRishon was. How great he was. Same thing with Chava. Chava, made by Kadosh Baruch Hu's hands himself. Most beautiful woman that ever lived. What happened? What happened? 1 sin. Not 500 sins. Not 1,000 sins. Not 50,000 sins. Not wasting seed for 25 years before you hear the shiur for the first time. 1 sin, which to us is not even a sin. If Hashem says, listen, there's a bunch of trees, just don't eat that one. You eat it, most likely he's not going to punish you. Why? It's a fruit, it's allowed, really. It's kosher. It's not like you eat pig. You're not violating Shabbat. 1 sin they made in their level. What happened? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're going to have midah. You're going to have birth pangs. You're going to have difficulties raising kids. You are down there, you're going to suffer when you work. It's going to be hard to earn money. It's going to be hard to make a living. It's going to be hard to do everything. For how long? For the next 6,000 years. Billions of people are going to get sick, are going to die early, are going to go, have a hard time making a living, hard time getting married, hard time having kids, hard time getting rid of the kids finally, hard time with everything. For how long? 6,000 years. Billions and billions of people are going to experience major difficulty. How long? Their entire lives. With no breaks. Why? 1 sin. To teach us the magnitude of sin in the eyes of Hashem. In the eyes of us, we think the sin is like a little quarter. What's the big deal? Hashem has so many people. What's the big deal if I, steal a little bit, violate a little bit, do a little bit? He's got a lot of other good people, and I do good things too. Hashem says, look what one sin did to an entire generation after generation after generation after generation for 6,000 years what one sin led to. To learn from this, don't make purposeful sins. You're going to make sins accidentally. No one's perfect, but don't do them on purpose. Why? You're going to ruin a whole lot more than you can imagine. It doesn't look big from your perspective because you're small. And the sin looks small. But from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's perspective, and He's unlimited, He sees the magnitude of your sin and how much of an impact it's going to make. And therefore, Rabotai Yekarim, this whole thing of the pain of Mashiach, that all starts from that one sin too. That's all for that original problem. Now, her sin and Adam HaRishon's sin was in their level. But us violating Shabbat, us being pogem abrit, us eating non-kosher, us marrying non-Jews, us going against the Torah, us committing murder, whether it's by mouth or by action, whatever it is, much, much worse. Don't make HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hand much harder than it needs to be already. It's important to know that the Chachamim didn't say things blindly or superficially or superfluously where there was just, this makes sense, I'm just going to write it here. If they called it the Ikvetat Mashiach, if they called it Chavle Mashiach, if they had these names for these things where in essence there's going to be a struggle, there's going to be suffering before Mashiach comes, that means that we have to do everything possible to improve our situation as much as possible. And there's simply only two things to do. There's nothing else you can do. And the Gemara says from Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanos, the same Rabbi Eliezer that told his students, I want the Mashiach to come, just not when I'm around. Too scared. So the student says, okay, well, you're going to die soon, you're old, but what about us? Maybe we're going to live to see Mashiach, so what can we do? Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanos says you can only do two things to improve the situation. Torah and Gemilut Chasadim. Whatever you know in the Torah, do it. Yeah, but it's hard for me. Okay, so you'll suffer. No, I'll do it. What's the other thing then, Rabbi? Gemilut Chasadim. What's Gemilut Chasadim? Overwhelming kindness. Oh, so why? Just give my friend a ride? Well, that's kindness, but not overwhelming. So what's that? Get him back to Hashem. Get her back to Hashem. Go do Kiruv. Go support Kiruv. Do something to help Hashem's other children come back to Hashem. Those are the only two things you can do. You could do it with money, you could do it with time, you could do it with skill, you could do it with a combination thereof. But if you do Kiruv, it doesn't eliminate your need to learn Torah and fulfill it. And if you learn Torah, it doesn't mean that you're absolved from doing Kiruv. Why? You got to do a combination. Those are the two things that the same sages tell us are the main things we need to do in order to improve our circumstances. So this Chavle Mashiach, this pain before Mashiach comes, is not going to be as painful as it can be. Perhaps even not painful for us at all, but for others possibly. Either way, Rabotai, we already see from the first page of this book the real perspective of the sages, whether it be from the Gemara, or from the prophets, or from the Rishonim, or from the Achronim like Rav Wasserman and the Chafetz Chaim. The real perspective of what is Mashiach looks like is very, very different than what people think it looks like. Be'ezrat Hashem, next week we'll continue with what else he said is going to happen at the time of Mashiach, what else is causing it really. I promise you, if you found this shiur interesting, you'll find next week's shiur even more interesting. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ve'amen.